Well, it's been 5 years since the first Joker movie, 2 years since James Gunn officially was announced to take over DC, and 2 years since we've been removed from that god-awful Zack Snyder universe. So, let's check on the state of DC today. Joker Folie, Deux is a complicated movie. It's complicated because from its inception, I didn't want this movie to be made, and it was made because of how much money it made. That was a lot of maids. Unfortunately, the one maid that wasn't is a good movie, because this is far from it. This is not a good movie at all. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of why I don't think it's a good movie, let's just talk about the movie first. Folie Deux opens up with Arthur, with the returning Joaquin Phoenix portraying him, facing the death penalty. And despite the best efforts of his public defender, he is continuing to fall under, I guess, the influence of his legion of fans, led by Lee, portrayed by Lady Gaga, who have made him almost the messiah of this revolution happening in Gotham for the past 2 years, since that night of the riots and him murdering Murray Franklin live on television. Now, I don't like this movie, but I don't hate it. I don't think it's the worst comic book movie that's ever been made. I think that's insanely egregious. Like I said in the intro joke, plenty of the DCEU movies are way worse than this, way less ambitious. However, they also have the benefit of not really having the ability to ruin any of the films that came before them, because they're all terrible. This movie comes after Joker in 2019, which wasn't a perfect film. In fact, I don't even really think it was a great film. I just think it was a really serviceable alternate take on a comic book character, film that we usually get, or, more so like action, CGI fest, explosions, blah, blah, blah. This was a much more interesting take on that genre completely by putting a little spin on it and taking some influences from other filmmakers and older films. I do think the film itself was carried by Phoenix's performance, because no one else really does that great of a job. Not to say that anyone's bad in that movie, but no one in that movie was really as great as Phoenix was. Like, let's just be candid. Phoenix did an amazing job. He takes an average movie and elevates it to a pretty good movie. Now, if you go by the opinion of the internet, it's
the biggest piece of dog shit.
But I think it's much more of a mixed bag. There are some things to appreciate here, and a bunch of the things that are appreciable, if that's a word, make the movie way better than some of the actual worst comic book movies, some of which I've reviewed on this channel.
I hate being alive! I hate being alive! I hate breathing! I hate being alive! I'm in tremendous pain! I'm in tremendous pain! Help me! Help me! Help me!
But I feel like overall, Todd Phillips made this film as just a big middle finger to DC and Warner Brothers, as well as the fans who pretty much embroiled DC and Warner Brothers to force Todd Phillips and Joaquin Phoenix to make a sequel because of how much money we gave them. I saw Joker in theater more than once, so I guess this is also on me. But something that made me think that this aspect of Todd Phillips making this out of spite is true was James Gunn's statement not too long ago by saying that this film is not under his new DC Studios brand, even though Matt Reeves' Batman is. Now, I know what you're saying. Why does that matter? Well, Matt Reeves' Batman came out around the same era as this DC shift up that Warner Brothers did, where James Gunn is creating a new universe, getting rid of anything that was made previously, and everything else that's made from now on in the entertainment field, at least. So anything outside of comic books are considered underneath a umbrella canon, unless it is stated before that it is not. Now, like I said, Matt Reeves' Batman, as well as the Penguin show on HBO Max, are considered under this umbrella that James Gunn has started, but this film isn't for some reason, even though it came out after both of those properties. And I know what you're saying, well, who cares? Maybe those are part of James Gunn's mainline canon. Maybe that's why. Well, no. They also consider the Matt Reeves universe an Elseworld universe, so go fuck yourself. First, let's just get to the easy part of what I didn't like. The movie dispels a lot of intrigue and mystery that the previous film presents, considering Arthur is presented as an untrustworthy narrator. The film itself feels as though it's not only meant to make clear to the audience that we are not supposed to like Arthur and have no sympathy for him, but also that any aura or myth surrounding this character in the fictional film universe as well as our own should be dispelled, and he should just be viewed as a loser, which I said after I watched the first movie. However, I do think it's an interesting concept to take characters that we're not supposed to root for and make them the main protagonist, make them someone who triumphs. Maybe we can understand the character of Joker better if we see how he rose into the role of Gotham's criminal mastermind supreme. However, the film also undoes another bit of the first film that was charming, which were the disconnected aspects of the source material. I have no issues with characters like Harvey Dent or even Harley showing up in this movie, but there's one character near the end of this film, like right at the end, like the literal ending, and including them was such a confusing choice and almost feels like a fuck you to the Marvel and maybe this upcoming DC universe of like introducing characters in mid-credit scenes and endings in the lamest way possible, like the original Nick Fury Avenger scene, and how every shared universe has tried to copy off of that singular moment. However, I must say, before we even get into spoilers or anything like that, I will say I do like the overall bleakness of the ending. It's just the other 90% of its execution and the context and everything else that happens in this film that ruins it. The pacing in this movie is also really bad, like the first film, but that was saved by Phoenix's acting, whereas here the writing is so bad, and Phoenix's performance as well as anyone else's in this movie, like I said, isn't terrible, but not good enough to really elevate how bad this film really is. Phoenix is good, but like I said, he's not that good. There's a lot of scenes where it feels like he's just meandering. Even in some of the scenes where I consider his performance to be better, it just came off as incoherent and without like any real control or wrangle on the guy. He seems just to be like ad-libbing almost, and it's not that good. There are plenty of scenes where he's given the floor and you think you're getting set up for a great performance or interesting monologue. This happens maybe like 4 or 5 times in the movie, but nothing comes as close to anything in the first film, like the Tai Chi scene or even his ending monologue against Murray, or even the cheekiness of something like the children's hospital scene. Nothing in this film has any sort of twisted charm to it or entertaining aspect to it, except for we'll get there. Lady Gaga's in this, and honestly, she's underutilized. The character is underwritten, underdeveloped, and barely shows up despite being, listed as a co-lead. I like the fact that she's a completely different take on Harley. I like when they switch up the Harleys, like the one we got in the Telltale games, as well as the one that we got in Cape Crusader not too long ago. So this was also a welcome change. And everyone else, from Gleason to Beats and Harvey Dent's actor, I feel like are, great actors, but they're all wasted. There's only one actor that returns from the first film that I feel like is actually given some time to shine and steps up to the plate and actually performs. And that'll also be in spoilers. The cinematography is great. The editing on certain sequences, however, is a bit odd, and especially on the musical sequences, I would have ended them maybe like a minute or two earlier. If you ask some people, you would have ended them 3 or 4 minutes earlier, thus rendering them non-existent, because a lot of people felt like they were bad and egregious, and I agree. I think the musical sequences only look really good. That is, where I feel like the cinematography, set design, and makeup really stands out. But the only ones that I truly liked were the ones where it was like Joker just dancing. It really felt like Joker from the animated cartoon, or even the Arkham game where he's in Bruce's mind and he's fake performing for a little bit. That reminded me of those kind of Joker antics, and man, I wish we gotten a criminal mastermind Joker with this level of showmanship portrayed by Joaquin Phoenix. I think that would have been a pretty cool depiction. Not getting it is not why I'm upset. It's all the other decisions that this movie makes that I will talk about right now in the spoilers that makes me upset. And also the singing is bad. Apparently they told Lady Gaga and Joaquin Phoenix, who surprisingly can actually sing, to sing off key to represent the mania and overall lunacy within the movie, but I feel like they should have been singing well, considering the singing sequences are all delusions, but that's neither here nor there. Let's just get into spoilers. If you don't want to see any spoilers, go to this time code where I'll just talk about my final thoughts, and let's just get into it. 3, 3, 2, 1, go. Arthur defending himself in court after firing his lawyer, aka the mom from Get Out, is dumb. I'm sorry. I understand that this is a comic book movie, but overall, up until this point, these films were presented as somewhat grounded and realistic, and that is not grounded or realistic at all. Neither is him being in the epicenter of a terrorist bomb going off and him ending up unharmed, except for, slight loss of hearing for the moment. Maybe if he was where he was sitting earlier in that scene and this happened, I would have found that more plausible, but hey-o. That's also probably the most engaging part of the movie. Like, it's the part where I locked in. That and another part, but that was kind of ruined by Phoenix's performance in that scene, aka the scene with Gary Puddles, who the actor who portrays Gary Puddles, I don't know his name, but I'll put it on the screen here, does an amazing job of recounting the moment from the first film and explaining why, even though Arthur didn't kill him, he still technically ruined his life in a very powerful way. Outside of that, the rest of this film is a courtroom drama, pretty much recounting what happened in the first film and dispelling any of the mystery, intrigue from the first film that were left up in the air and open for interpretation. And finally, just to get to it, there is an assault scene, a sexual assault scene that honestly felt needlessly cruel and is poorly timed, considering it happens right before he gives up, and it makes the audience feel that the Joker personality, I guess, is R-worded out of him for the sake of the better of society. It seems that Arthur finally gets like a moral consciousness and compass in this film, despite the fact that it was pretty much made clear, especially by the end of the first movie, that whatever his mental illness was, whatever it is, doesn't allow him to truly understand the magnitude and consequences of his actions. It isn't until the Gary Puddles scene that I felt like that should have been the true moment that sends him over the edge. Him getting assaulted, I feel like, just makes it, I don't know, like it kind of negates all of the powerful things that were said during that scene, and even the death of his friend inmate that they get is just kind of like, I feel like enough to truly convince him. Even the testimony from the Zazie Beetz character, or maybe him seeing Harvey Dent become Two-Face, could have been another thing that, plucks on his humanity strings. Anything like that. But no, we really don't get that. We really don't get that at all. He gets Joker R-worded out of him, and I don't really like that, personally. And finally, the real Joker ending is completely unnecessary. The only time we see this character is at the beginning when he's mewing at Arthur for some reason. I'm not kidding. He's literally mewing at Arthur. You could watch the movie and you'll be like, holy shit, Josh was right. That guy is mewing. If this character had been the other inmate that Arthur was friends with and was getting tortured by the guards, and then when Arthur gives up the Joker persona, he lashes out, maybe this would have been a little bit more intriguing. But I do like the idea of Arthur, getting murdered in a way that is unceremoniously a little bleak. I'm all for that, but I feel like if this character was a little bit more important, we could have had like much more of a poignant moment, and I don't think people would have been as upset as at the ending. But I think what really sends this ending over the edge as an awful ending is the fact that the character ends up giving himself a Glasgow smile like Joker from The Dark Knight and begins laughing hysterically as Arthur dies in the foreground. The implication here that this character is somehow the real Jonkler is so unnecessary, much like honestly the rest of this movie. I'll take it. I was wrong, dude. This shouldn't have been a musical. When this was announced as a musical, I was excited. I was like, hey, maybe give this a chance. Maybe this is the remix to the genre that we need to revitalize things and bring life to it. But who would have thought that the best comic book movie this year is Deadpool and Wolverine? Overall, the movie is ambitious, but due to the overall tone and what feels like the mission statement by the director, as well as no real amazing moment or standout performance, you get a frustratingly average and boring movie that could have had so much to say and could have been that legitimate criticism and commentary on studios and people and fans forcing franchises to extend and sabotaging essentially the creator's vision without sabotaging the viewer's watching experience. But no, this movie just feels like a giant middle finger to anyone who enjoyed the first movie and anyone who wanted to enjoy the second movie. But what are your thoughts on Joker Folie? Deux? Let me know in the comment section down below, and I will see you in the next review or retro redux. Bye bye.